All right, let's pull back the curtain on the AI that runs pretty much the entire world of digital advertising. Today, we're giving it a report card. We're going to look past all the hype and dive into what a huge scientific review tells us about how these systems are actually doing. So, let's open the books and see the grades. First things first, let's talk about the scale we're dealing with. This isn't some small corner of the economy. We're talking about a market projected to be worth almost $800 billion by 2025. That's a massive global machine that has a real impact on what we see, what we buy, and maybe even how we think. And that leads us to the big question, right? We know AI is the engine here, but is it the straight-A student everyone thinks it is? Or are there some really important subjects it's just completely failing? Now, you might be wondering, where's all this info coming from? Well, it's from an incredibly solid source. Researchers took a deep dive starting with nearly 1,000 scientific papers and systematically whittling them down to the 42 most important high-quality studies out there. So what you're about to see isn't just an opinion, it's the distilled wisdom of more than a decade of research. Okay, first up on the report card, the subjects where AI is absolutely acing the test. We have to give credit where it's due. The technical side of things is frankly a massive triumph. And the star pupil is, well, it's not even a contest. A full 2/3 of all the research focuses on one thing: deep learning. We're talking about those super complex, brain-like neural networks that have completely changed the game. In ad tech, deep learning isn't just one of the tools in the toolbox, it is the toolbox. So what are these things actually doing? Let's break it down real simple. You've got your classic deep neural networks, which are like superpowered detectives finding tiny patterns in mountains of data. Then you have these really cool attention-based models, which try to copy human focus, zeroing in on what's most important. And then you get these clever hybrid models, which are kind of the best of both worlds. They mix the raw power of deep learning with the reliability of simpler models. So we've got all this incredible, high-powered technology. But what's it all for? What is the one single mission that all this brainpower has been assigned? Well, the answer is the click-through rate, or CTR. It's a pretty simple idea, really. For all the people who see an ad, how many of them actually click on it? For years and years, this has been the absolute gold standard for success in the ad world. And just how important is CTR? Well, look at this number. It shows up as a major goal in over 95% of the top studies. Just let that sink in. It's a near total obsession. This entire multi-billion-dollar industry is laser-focused on getting you to do one thing: click. Now, for the longest time, it was all about engagement. Did they see it? Did they click? But things are slowly starting to change. There's this growing trend toward looking at actual business metrics, like return on ad spend. The industry is finally starting to ask a smarter question. Okay, they clicked, but did we actually make any money from it? And that brings us to the other side of the report card. Because for all of its A-plus technical skills, this AI has some huge, glaring blind spots. And these aren't just C's or D's. These are straight-up failing grades. So with all this incredible computing power, all this focus on getting that one click, what are the really important things that we're completely failing to even look at? 0. That is the percentage of these top-tier scientific studies that bothered to measure the fairness of their ad algorithms. Not one, nobody was checking if these systems were creating or amplifying harmful biases. And here we go again. 0. That's how many studies measured the environmental sustainability of these things. We know these massive AI models use a ton of energy, but it seems like the research community has just completely ignored the cost to the planet. And one last time, you guessed it, 0%. That's the number of studies that measured robustness. Basically, how well these systems hold up against attacks like click fraud, which, by the way, costs the industry billions. The takeaway here is pretty stark. We've built something incredibly powerful, but almost no one is checking if it's fair, if it's sustainable, or if it's even secure. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The study's own authors call this an alarming methodological gap. They straight up warn that if we don't start measuring fairness, these algorithms could easily end up making real-world discrimination even worse. So why? Why are these massive gaps here? Well, it's not simply a case of misplaced priorities. It turns out, behind these big ethical blind spots, there's a stubborn technical problem that's been bugging this field for a long time. And that problem is called data sparsity. Nearly 60% of the studies pointed to this as a fundamental challenge. Put simply, it just means there's not enough data to learn from. I mean, imagine trying to figure out a person's entire personality based on the single word they said. That's the challenge for the AI. With so few actual clicks to go on, it really struggles to understand the big picture. So, where does that leave us? Well, the good news is the research doesn't just point out all the problems. It also gives us a pretty clear roadmap for how to build a smarter and, frankly, more responsible AI for the future. And the recommendations are pretty straightforward. We need to look beyond just deep learning and diversify our tools. We urgently need to build systems that can actually measure and ensure fairness. We need to start tackling tricky but important areas like healthcare and finance. And, we have to finally start paying attention to the massive energy bill this technology is racking up. Really, it all boils down to a pretty clear three-step plan. Step 1, broaden the goal. We have to move past just chasing clicks. Step 2, we need to build new yardsticks. If we want fair, sustainable, and robust AI, we have to create industry standards to measure those things. And step 3, we need to innovate beyond just raw performance. A good algorithm should also be efficient, transparent, and secure. Which leaves us with this one last thought. We have absolutely proven that we can build AI that is incredibly smart, that is surgically good at hitting a very narrow target. But as these systems get more and more tangled up in our lives, the real challenge is this. Can we teach them not just to be smart, but to also be wise?